Many people today carry a gnawing sense that the institutions around us are not real in the way they present themselves. Governments, universities, corporations, media, even large churches and NGOs. These were once the pillars of public life. Their buildings still gleam, their slogans still promise purpose, their leaders still speak of progress. But something vital seems missing. Beneath the polished surfaces, there is a strange emptiness. The words sound right, the rituals continue, but the soul has gone. We hear grand statements from executives and administrators, polished mission statements, inclusive slogans, 5-year strategic plans. But on the ground, individuals feel unseen, unserved, and ultimately unconvinced. There's a widening gap between the appearance of our organizations and the reality of the experience. Employees, customers, and citizens alike hear assurances that everything is fine, while they witness decline, disconnection, and distrust. The official story and the experienced truth no longer match. This mismatch produces something close to a social psychosis. In the late Soviet Union, this was called hypernormalization. Everyone knew the official narrative was false, but no one could imagine an alternative, so everyone pretended as if it were true. Increasingly, the same pattern appears in the modern West, not just in politics, but inside companies and institutions too. Executives preach virtue while exploiting loopholes, universities extol open inquiry while enforcing ideological conformity. Leaders talk about empowerment, but just end up tightening control. We nod along, knowing it's just pure wind. The rot begins in words themselves. When language loses its link to truth, institutions soon follow. Modern organizational culture thrives on euphemism, on statements designed not to reveal but to obscure reality. It's a culture of spin, where reality is filtered through communication strategy. A company right-sizing operations to better serve stakeholders means it's firing people. A department realigning to enhance agility means it's just under pressure to cut costs. Bureaucratic and corporate speech has become a dialect of avoidance. Words meant to calm, not to clarify. The philosopher Joseph Pieper warned that when words become tools of manipulation rather than truth, the foundation of culture itself collapses. Once language stops pointing to reality, trust dies. People just tune out. They expect deceit as the normal state of affairs. So executives speak, but no one listens. Memos just go unread. Value statements hang on walls, their meanings as vacant as the jargon that fills them. The words remain, but their connection to real goods, to truth, beauty, goodness, and unity, has been severed. Language just becomes ornamental, and it hides the absence of belief. What remains is a peculiar unreality. Institutions still function outwardly. You have meetings which are held, reports are filed, metrics are tracked, but the substance is just drained away. The sociologist Oswald Spengler described civilization's winter phase, when the living soul is gone but the forms persist as empty shells. We might be there. Corporate life continues to produce its rituals, its annual reviews, town halls, performance frameworks, leadership programs, but few people believe these rituals actually lead anywhere. Workers go through the motions, speaking the required phrases, checking the compliance boxes. Managers hold culture workshops to discuss authenticity and belonging. But everyone senses the irony. The theatre goes on even as belief fades away. Take education, for example, one of the most institutionalized systems we have. A university will boast of its transformational learning experience. Students attend classes, professors submit assessments, administrators publish their glossy reports, but many within confess that it feels mechanical. Professors are scared of complaints more than ignorance. Students chase credentials, not wisdom. The classroom becomes a stage. Professors pretend to teach, students pretend to learn, administrators pretend this is excellence. The image persists, but the meaning dissolves. Beneath all this is a deeper breakdown, which is the death of authority itself. The Latin auctoritas means not mere power, but the moral capacity to originate, order, and inspire. It was the right to be heeded because one's judgment corresponded to truth. In most organizations today, authority has been reduced to position, a title on an org chart, a function of HR policy, not an expression of wisdom. Leaders no longer lead, they manage perceptions instead. They're trained to align stakeholders, mitigate reputational risk, and maintain psychological safety, but rarely to stand for something true. The result is just a crisis of trust. Employees and citizens alike assume that every statement is strategic, that every decision is self-serving. Some of that suspicion is earned, but much of it is reflexive. We've lived through too many scandals, seen too many values-driven companies collapse under hypocrisy. Worse, many leaders themselves no longer believe in authority as a moral vocation. They act as facilitators, appeasers, or brand managers. A CEO crafts messages to satisfy investors and social media alike. A university dean calibrates policies to avoid controversy. A non-profit director tailors mission language to donor sentiment. Authority is ceded to popularity, conviction gives way to calculation, and those meant to lead abdicate, while those meant to follow withdraw trust. The social contract of authority, obedience offered in exchange for truth and wisdom, is broken, and all that remains is management. In place of leadership, we have systems. We have rules, protocols, HR policies, algorithms. Organizations increasingly resemble machines. They're procedural, they're impersonal, and they're self-perpetuating. You apply to a company and are filtered by software. You work there and you're governed by dashboards. You leave and you might receive an automated survey. Each interaction is managed, but none are human. Hospitals drown patients and staff alike in paperwork. Universities operate as data farms, students as inputs, metrics as outputs. Corporations treat workers as potential liabilities before they treat them as humans. Discipline now takes bureaucratic form, regulation without judgment and compliance without care. The moral burden, once carried by conscience, has been transferred to forms, policies, and digital systems. And technology has only intensified this. The face of authority is no longer human, it's algorithmic. A faceless moderation team enforces community standards. Credit scores, reputation metrics, and engagement dashboards have become our silent governors. Punishment no longer comes from moral order, but from automated exclusion. Being banned, shadow banned, or otherwise sidelined. Real decisions are made elsewhere, behind closed doors, in legal clauses or boardrooms. The rituals of transparency, town halls, press releases, shareholder letters, are increasingly just theatre, and institutions perform legitimacy instead of embodying it. Inside organizations, employees learn the rules of this theatre. They attend the mandatory trainings, they recite the new mission language. They play along because they must. The new hypocrisy is not vice pretending to be virtue, but it's just disbelief pretending to believe. Everyone knows the script, everyone privately disbelieves it, everyone performs it anyway. And this ends up just corroding the soul. Pretending that the unreal is real just breeds self-contempt. It's one thing to be deceived, but another to join in with the deception. Over time, the organization fills up with cynics, people who comply outwardly while retreating inwardly, disengaged but scared of being honest. Truth becomes a reputational hazard. Authenticity becomes a career risk. So a culture of despair just settles in. The decline of authority has been masked by a new corporate piety, safety, empathy, emotional comfort. These began as humane corrections to harsh hierarchies, but when taken to excess as they are now, they've become dogmas. Every interaction must be psychologically safe. Every disagreement requires sensitivity training. Every truth has to be softened just in case it harms someone's feelings. This therapeutic ethos now defines many workplaces. Leadership becomes customer service, and hard feedback is now really taboo. Performance management speaks of growth opportunities, never failure. HR policies multiply to prevent offense even at the cost of excellence or honesty. The highest corporate good is no longer truth or virtue. It's something like niceness. In a culture like that, authority dies. A leader who seeks to please everyone just cannot lead. A manager who fears disapproval cannot correct. A company that prizes comfort over courage cannot even hope to pursue greatness. And the result of that is a bland managerial class, very efficient, cautious, spiritually empty. So people feel managed, they're not led. And beneath the comfort lies resentment. Human beings crave the dignity of challenge, the summons to something higher. This is why organizational crises now produce empathy statements instead of decisions. And when a scandal breaks and leaders issue memos, they'll say, "We hear your concerns." It rings untrue to us. Authority has become a branch of public relations. So the aim is not to do what's right anymore, but to just maintain the right feeling. And the result of that is paralysis. Endless communication with no resolution. If you ask employees or customers to name a leader they truly trust who embodies integrity or vision, many would struggle to name one. This vacuum speaks volumes. An organization that cannot point to legitimate authority is like a ship where every sailor mistrusts the captain and the captain secretly doubts the compass. In such a state, even small storms become existential. And all of this accumulates into a collective mood, a sense that we're play acting through institutional forms whose meaning we no longer believe. We attend meetings, we complete the compliance trainings, we sign value statements, and we nod through strategy sessions, but we wonder if any of it even matters. We know, we have a feeling, we sense that the system has become self-referential, concerned more with preserving its image than serving any real good. And that's why the word fake has become the cultural reflex of our age. Fake news, fake experts, fake virtue, fake culture. Beneath all of this lies the intuition that something essential has gone missing. The correspondence between words and actions, symbols and substance, authority and truth. Institutions do pretend to care, and individuals do pretend to believe, but everyone still feels this mostly unspoken nausea of unreality. We scroll, we consume, we perform, we comply, but we rarely believe. Our public life hums with activity but starves for meaning. The ancient link between truth and trust, the belief that what's true can be known and those who know it can be followed, has just been broken. And what remains is this weary cynicism, people who expect manipulation and settle for comfort. And so our organizations keep drifting. The buildings are still there and the slogans still echo. The quarterly reports still come every quarter, but the words no longer bind, the leaders no longer lead, and the rituals no longer renew. The outer form persists, but the animating spirit inside has fled. We live among hollow institutions, managed by hollow leaders, within a hollowed-out public life. The lights are still on, but the house is empty. So what we're left with then is not only emptiness, but also opportunity. The void itself points to what's been lost. For evil, as the old thinkers taught, is never a positive force, but a privation, the absence of the good. A hollow institution is just lacking what once gave it life. And where there is absence, there is space to be filled by those willing to stand in reality. Reality has certain characteristics. It speaks in truth that is not hedged or spun. It seeks the genuine good of those it touches, rather than their manipulation. It shows itself in the beauty of things well made and rightly ordered, where form matches purpose and waste is stripped away, and it holds together in unity so that words, actions, and structures do not contradict each other but actually cohere. Organizations that embody these characteristics cannot easily be imitated, and that's because these are not techniques or policies. They run far deeper than that. They're ways of being, and they're woven into the very fabric of the whole. So, the competitive advantage can't be reduced to clever branding or growth hacks or pivots or faster execution. Instead, it's based on credibility that compounds, loyalty that deepens, and authority that renews itself. Employees stick around because they know they're part of something real, something that actually matters, and not because they're trapped or have given up on being part of something that appeals to this sense of what is true, beautiful, and good. At a time now when unreality is the norm, reality itself becomes the rarest differentiator. The organization that dares to align itself with what is, without disguise, without euphemism, will endure where others fracture. It will shine because everything else has gone dim around it. And in that light, authority will no longer need to be asserted. It will be recognized and valued freely and without the need for coercion.